Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Nikola Petkovic. I'm a property consultant here in Dubai with over a half a decade experience. In this video, what I will be talking to you is regarding the Dubai real estate market in 2023. What can we expect? What are some of the changes, and will prices going up as they have so far, right? Now, if this is the first video you're seeing from me, I definitely recommend you to check out my channel. You'll find a lot of information like this. You'll find quarterly reports. You'll also find a lot of attractive projects here in Dubai that are reviewed in depth by me. So make sure you check that out and make sure you subscribe as well so you stay in touch, because I plan on providing you more, right? Now, to this actual video, what we'll go through first 3 quarters of 2022 very briefly to understand what happened there. Then we'll go to quarter 4 in 2022 a little bit more detailedly, and then we'll go to the annual report of the entire year, inclusive with those, right? We'll look at tourism and population changes. We'll look at rent changes, inflation, interest rates, how that has affected the market, especially through mortgage transactions. And then we'll look at the 2023 year to date. After that, I'll give you guys the market and demand report, basically a report from the ground, from my perspective, and I'll tell you exactly what's going on from someone who's been doing this for some time and who is seeing firsthand what's happening and how buyers, tenants, and everyone else is behaving, thinking, and doing, right? So, with that, we'll get into it. First 3 quarters, as I said briefly, because there is full reports that you can find on the channel. But let's see it this way. From 2020, when the prices started to increase from the second half of 2020, through 2021, prices were increasing in purchase prices and rental amounts as well. But what's important to understand is how big 2022 was, even though 2021 was a generally good year for Dubai real estate market. Now, in quarter 1 of 2022, previous year, we had 20,521 transactions. These transactions are equivalent to 55.3 billion dirhams, and they represent a number of transactions, 14.2% increase quarter on quarter, and 77.5% increase versus quarter 1 of 2021. So you can see how huge this quarter was and where things really started to boil down. Now, in terms of value, 55.3 billion dirhams was the total sales value for the property sold in quarter 1 2022, and this represented 18.1% quarter on quarter increase and 125% in increase in value of property sold versus quarter 1 of 2021. Now, in quarter 2, things continued, as you'll see along. 22,448 transactions, total worth of 59.1 billion dirhams. Regarding the number of transactions, 9.4% increase quarter on quarter and 45% increase when compared to the same quarter 2 of 2021. When it comes to the sales value, 6.8% quarter on quarter increase on the value, and 61% increase versus quarter 2 of 2021. In quarter 3, similar situation, as you can see, further growth, 25,503 transactions, 13.6% increase quarter on quarter, and almost 60% increase when compared to quarter 3 of 2021. In terms of value of the property sold, it is 69.5 billion dirhams, which is 17.6% increase quarter on quarter and 63.9% when compared to quarter 3 of 2021. So each and every one during this quarter, look at this, 125% increase in value, 61% and 64% here in quarter 3 when compared to the previous quarter of the same year. Now, quarter 4. In quarter 4, things continued in the same direction, as you can see. but we'll look at it a little bit more closely because I don't have the full report on that. And it's very important to understand because it's also the closest quarter to the one that we are now, right? So in quarter 4 of 2022, we had 28,780 transactions. So these transactions, of course, include any sort of real estate, which is apartments, villas, commercial plots as well, right? So from this quarter, quarter 4, in this quarter we have 12.8% increase quarter on quarter and 60.2% increase when compared to quarter 4 of 2021. Apartments themselves, 21,354 units have been sold or transacted. 19% increase quarter on quarter and 83.3% increase versus quarter 4 of 2021. The total value of apartments only that are sold in quarter 4 2022 is 44.5 billion dirhams. Villas, 5,654 villas have been sold, which represent actually minus 2.4% quarter on quarter. So more villas have been transacted in the previous quarter, quarter 3 of 2022, but it is 16.3% higher than quarter 4 of 2021. And the total value of villas transacted was 23 billion dirhams. In this entire quarter of 2022, total of 81.1 billion dirhams have been transacted in properties themselves. Now, 16.8% is the quarter-on-quarter increase, and 73.2% is when it is compared to quarter 4 of 2021 in terms of actual value sold. So monetary equivalent again, which is 81.1 billion dirhams. Now, if we look at the entire year of 2022 and we look at the annual report, what we can see is that there has been total of 97,252 units transacted. This again includes the apartments, villas, commercial and plots as well. And now you can see the distribution between them as well. So overall we have 59.5% increase in number of transactions that happened in 2022 when compared to the entire year of 2021. When it comes to the actual value of transactions, so the monetary equivalent, this in 2022 we had 264.9 billion, so almost 265 billion dirhams of transactions. That represents 76.1% increase when compared to 2021. Regarding the apartments, 67,702 units have been transacted, which is 71.1% increase on year 2021, with overall sales value of 130.3 billion dirhams. Villas, 22,609 villas have been transacted, 42.1% increase versus the year 2021, and reaching almost 80 billion dirhams right there. So when we look at this a little bit closer and we look at the off-plan versus ready properties as well, and keep in mind that the off-plan property does not actually consider plot transactions right here. When we look at the number of transactions, in 2021 we had 26,059 units, while in 2022 we had 52,075 units transacted. Now that's for off plans. For ready units comparison, in 2021 we had 31,790 units, while in 2022 we had 41,278 units. When it comes to the actual value, or again monetary equivalent, we are looking at 2021 for off plan 51 billion dirhams sold, while in 2022 125 billion worth of off-plan properties that have been sold. In 2021, regarding the ready properties, 71 billion, and in 2022, regarding ready properties, 90 billion dirhams. So you can see clearly the difference is there. In terms of percentages, regarding the sales volume, 56% of the market belongs to the off-plan properties, and regarding the sales value, there 58% of the market belongs to the actual off-plan properties, which makes a lot of sense as well, as we'll see also as we move further along. Now, the properties that have been launched, so we need to understand the actual supply as well, right? So the properties that are launched in 2021, we had 26,609 units, while the number of properties or units that are launched in 2022 is 53,943 units. So, so what about the units that are actually delivered in the market in the same years, right? That are units that are handed over at that time. So during 2021, we had 30,687 units delivered, and during 2022, we had 35,560 units that are actually delivered. So depending on how you look at these numbers, you can understand, but generally this is far from what's necessary, which is what also is further causing the growth of the prices. Now, if you're asking who's gonna be living in these units or who's living in them now, let me first tell you where they are delivered, and then I will tell you who's living in them, right, or who's using them. Now, you can see through the actual areas. So for example, International City, 4% of the overall delivered units through 2022, which is 1,312 units. You can see Jumeirah Village Circle took approximately 5% of the actual units delivered with 1,761 units. Business Bay, 2,570 units. Damac Hills absolutely dominating this sector with 6,517 units delivered at the previous year, which is 2022. So this gives you a lot of information. Now back to our point of who's actually using these units and later on who's buying them as well. Well, we need to look at the actual population and tourism as well, starting from tourism, to understand that in pre-COVID times, so 2019 for an example, Dubai was visited in a single year by 16.73 million tourists, according to the Dubai's Department of Economy and Tourism data, right? Now, in this year, in previous year, 2022, Dubai received 14.36 million international overnight visitors, which is a growth of 97% when we look at it year-on-year basis from the actual 7.28 million tourists that arrived in 2021. Regarding the occupancy of the hotels, average occupancy in Dubai was 73% in 2022, which is just shy of 75%, which was occupancy in pre-pandemic period of 2019. Still, at 73%, Dubai is one of the cities, one of the highest occupancy cities in the world. And by the way, it's also very important to notice that this, even with this high occupancy, we actually had an increase of 16% of room supply in actual 2022 when compared to 2019. So Dubai's hotel inventory at the end of December of 2022 had 146,496 rooms at 804 hotel establishments, while in 2019 it had only 126,120 rooms available and at 741 hotel establishments, right? So even though we had a 16% increase in rooms, we are still reaching 73% average occupancy throughout the city. That's very important to understand. It lets you grasp how big this actually is. Now, according to the Dubai Statistics Center data, the Emirates population has increased by 4% after 2020, and Dubai has crossed 3.5 million population mark in April of 2022. Now, at the moment, data from the Statistics Center also shows that the population is reaching 3,550,400 people, which is an increase of 2.1% in only year of 2022. So the population at that time, or at 2021, end of 2021, stood at 3,478,300 residents in the actual city, right? So that this tells a story which I have spoken about before, but either way, you can understand that how many people are coming here, how many people are deciding to stay here as well, right? The expats or people who have already came here, who started working here, they obviously like it here and they are staying, and new people are continuously arriving as well. They are looking to find or finding something more attractive here than their own home countries or whatever precisely whichever countries they are coming from, right? So how does this affect the actual rent as well? Obviously the sales prices are increasing heavily, but they are also closely followed, of course, by the rental prices also, because we don't have the enough units yet that are delivered to the market to cover this demand and this requirement of for tenants as well. So we can see here, for an example, the apartment rent changes based in 1 year, so from 2021 to 2022 only. Look at for example, Al Wasl with City Walk and all, from 155 to 185,000. Marking 19.4% year-on-year growth, or Palm Jumeirah almost 30%, downtown Dubai 27.8%, Dubai Marina 33.3% increase in rents, Dubai Hills Estate 23.3% increase in rates, right? So this gives us another background story actually, which is who's buying these properties, right? It's not only international investors, although there is plenty of international investors. There is also a lot of people who were previous tenants right here in Dubai, residents in the city. The tenants are seeing this enormous increase in prices as well, and they are deciding to actually go and get a unit for themselves, buy it themselves, buy a home, since they are already established here, and they see that they can, down the line, even if they move from the city, if they go to another country later on, they can still rent it and have fantastic returns in terms of cash flow and rental yield, as well as the capital gains, right? So what about villas? A very similar situation. We can see the increase in Mohammed bin Rashid City of 40%, Palm Jumeirah 25%, Dubai Marina 27%, Meydan or Nadal Sheba First 55% increase, Dubai Hills Estate 48.4% increase, and so forth. And these are again only in 1 year during the actual 2022. All right, so what about our old friend inflation? Well, this is an interesting chart right here where you can see a bunch of different countries and how the inflation changes went throughout the actual year. So from January 2022 to January 2023 right now, as you can see on the end, some of them are not updated yet because we don't have enough information, but you can at least see them until the December of 2022. You can see the changes along the line as well. This is probably a little bit easier to look at. So you can see, even though inflation is kind of getting in control in some countries, it is still very, very high. For anyone who understands these numbers and know what inflation is, or as Adam Smith referred to it as the invisible hand, right? They can understand the enormity of this particular problem. So as we can see in USA, things are getting kind of under control. They went from a little bit over 9% inflation, these are official numbers again, to 6.5. Eurozone still in very high still in very high inflation, 9.2% for December of the last year. UK as well, 10.5%. Enormous numbers right here. Regarding the interest rates are one of the attempts to solve the actual problem of inflation. Why? Because there is too much money circulating around and money was easily gettable, right? You can borrow it easily as well. So interest rates are basically the increase of interest rates has the biggest point to fight against the actual inflation, making the money itself more expensive and more expensive to borrow as well. Now, since the UAE central bank is actually and the dirham is actually tied or pegged to US dollar, the UAE central bank is following the central bank of US as well, and we had some of the hikes before. What the latest one happened a couple days ago, 2nd of February, and we had an increase to an actual 4.65, which is active right now, with the highest recorded since 2007 is 4.75. Now there might be another hike throughout the year, maybe multiple of them, depends on what we expect, but let's see how this actually affects the property market here, right? So if we look at the first picture, what we'll see is January 2023 versus January 2022, and you can see surprisingly that the number of mortgage transactions has increased, right? Now, if you paid attention to what I was saying before, that a lot of the residents are actually now residents that are tenants are actually now becoming buyers, you can understand the numbers of the mortgage as well, because they find it easier to pay 20% for the down payment and actually buy their own property and pay off the mortgage installments equivalent to the rent or similar, to own their own home and build equity in the home itself. So once you understand that, you will not be that surprised by these actual numbers, even though the interest rates are very high, closest to highest ever recorded, as you can see here on a previous slide. Again, you can see almost doubling from the January of 2022 when interest rates were a lot more affordable, sort of. So again, the big point regarding this particular market right here is because it's dominated by cash transactions, as you can see right here. So the blue block represents the actual cash sales or cash transactions, which is 9,824 overall transactions in January of 2023 versus 5,770 transactions in January 2022. Again, the same thing regarding the mortgages we can see on here below, where the actual number of transactions has went down when compared in 2022 versus 2021. So in 2022, we had minus 3.5% or 3.5% less mortgage transactions than in 2021, right? But what's interesting is that the value of those transactions is actually 7.7% higher. So throughout 2022, we had 134.6 billion dirhams worth of mortgage transactions, which again is 7.7% higher than 2021. Now, how does this reflect to things right now? So we compare 2023 or this year versus the last year of 2022 and year to date. Now, the date when I am recording this is 6th of February. And until this moment, we can see that the market is continuing to soar. If we look at the volume of transactions, right? If we look at the number of actual transactions, we see that 11,411 units have been transacted from 1st of January this year to 6th of February when I am actually recording this, right? So 65% year-on-year change when compared to the same time and same time frame of the previous year, 2022. And in terms of actual value, in dirhams, it is 33.2 billion dirhams, which represents 71.8% increase year-on-year change compared to the previous year or same time frame in 2022. What about mortgages? Look at this. 3,233 properties have been transacted through mortgage, which is again a huge gap, 84.4% increase compared to the same time frame of 2022. And what about the actual value? Well, the value is higher as well, more than double, 13.4 billion dirhams of mortgage values, which is 110.4% increase when compared to the same time frame, so January 1st to February 6th of 2022. So it's obvious so far that this year is continuing to surge forward, that we can see and we can expect continuous increase of prices as well. And I'll talk a little bit further about that down the line. Now I'm gonna give you the actual market report and the demand report from the ground. Now, been doing this for some time. I have seen a lot of changes in the market as well. I've been in a market that where the prices are going down, and now that prices are heavily increasing as well. So I can absolutely confirm to you that the demand is extremely high. Right now, the demand is extremely high. There is also various entry tickets, so it's normal that for lower amount of transactions or lower tickets, there is always a good number of transactions, right? Anywhere revolving, let's say, around 1 million dirhams. But and as the larger transactions get, the lower amount of actual transaction is, right? That's logical, because there is far more people that can afford a property that's 1 million dirham or around $300,000 than they can afford $3 million house, right? Either way, right now there is a demand which goes across all levels. So from lower transactions and lower amount of properties to higher valued properties, where we recently also had a single transaction where a penthouse is sold for 410 million dirhams, or approximately 112 million dollars, right? Now, that brings us to where? That again, we don't have enough of the supply, and not enough of the projects are being launched yet, at least to cover this immediate demand, right? And why can I tell you that precisely? And based on what? Based on that I see that every project pretty much is getting sold out at the actual official launch, right? Now, when is it getting sold out and how? This is a concept that a lot of people do not really understand, especially people who did not spend some time here or don't really understand this market but would like to be a part of it. So, what do I mean when I say that projects are getting launched and they are already sold out at the actual launch, at the release of the project, right? Well, that is because we are collecting something that's called EOI. So EOI, or the expression of interest. Now, if you want to get a unit in one of the buildings that is popular and that I can tell you will be straight away completely sold out at the launch, this is the reason why. If you want to get a unit there, you would have to get yourself a token to pay a certain amount before, and before you even know which exactly unit you are going to take. A lot of people are confused from this. A lot of people of my clients and people I work with are confused when I tell them about this, so I'm telling it now publicly as well, so everybody can understand, right? Now, why is this expression of interest paid up front? It's paid up front because we already know that demand is huge and there is not enough units for all the people that are interested and ready to buy. This is why we collect expression of interests that are given to developers, right? So we can get on a priority list, all right? So by getting on a priority list, by paying early, paying this amount, providing a passport copy as well, we are getting on what's called this priority list, where we are increasing our chances of getting a unit. So now it has become basically a fight to even get a certain unit allocated to you, right? Not to mention the ability to choose. So choosing in some of the projects that are really, really hot, you can straight away forget about choosing, right? You can go and hope for the best, but from the start, you need to be ready to make some sort of compromise as well. Which again brings me to the next point, which is lack of high-end units. So in some projects, like for an example, from Maras, what we have seen, the Blue Waters Bay, or a new project from Damak, Damak Bay by Cavalli, or projects like that, which are extremely hot, which are basically guaranteed opportunities, right? So you know that type of projects will increase in price. That types of projects have fantastic views, fantastic development overall. Everything is fantastic, right? And they also have high prices generally, of course. Why? Because they are taking some of the most exclusive locations in the entire city. So you know that you will be able to flip that, you will be able to sell it, you will be able to rent it. There will always be demand for those type of units, no matter what the market is, right? Because there's very limited amount of them, and there's always high net worth individuals who are ready to pay the price you ask for that. Now, what's the problem there? Well, the problem is due to this incredible demand and number of people who understand what I'm saying right now, is that it makes it almost impossible to get the unit in the first place. Damak, for an example, as you know from one of my previous videos, if you have seen that video for Damak Bay, they ask 5% to be transferred before you could get your unit, right, as an expression of interest. So if you wanted a 2-bedroom apartment, you had to transfer 225,000 before you know pretty much anything on the actual project, right? And that's the problem. Why? Because we know there is at least 10,000 people who are ready with sufficient liquid accounts, right, that can actually buy this property, that can pay what's required right now, and that are willing to do it. But there is extremely limited number of units right there. Okay, so that's the actual problem. And when you are launching a next one, so that particular project has, for an example, 3 towers. The second tower was launched on the same day because the first one was completely sold out already, right? So on the same actual launch, well, not even a launch, but unit allocation for us as your brokers representing you, they released it in the same day because they had to. There's just the demand is incredible. That's the thing. But let's go back from there to some of the projects that are maybe a little less known to you, or at least not that hot, right? So let's talk about some of the other projects. For an example, project by Ellington in JLT, which is 2 towers. One of them is completely sold out already. Second one is also sold out to the point where you have to cross your fingers, pay up front, have a good representative for you, a good property consultant, and then basically hope for the best that you can actually get a unit, right? Same thing we had now in Danube, the actual developer who launched Views in JLT as well by Aston Martin, with their brand name attached, right? So again, 2 towers. The first tower completely sold out, of course. And the second tower, there is a huge demand for it, that they are easily increasing the prices from 5 to 10% from the tower 1, even though it's the same project. Right? So for you, as someone who owns a unit in the first tower, let's say, is it Ellington, is it Danube, is it whatever it is Damak that I said before. If you are paying, for an example, 1 million, to take a round number for a unit, right? And then you get it in the first tower, and you get a unit on a high floor, a good overall unit, and then in tower 2, people are already paying 5% or 10% higher increase. You already have, this is your guaranteed capital appreciation. Because when those people from tower B try to sell that unit, let's say for 1.2, You can ask the same amount. It's completely unreasonable. It's completely reasonable to ask for the same amount of 1.2, but you are in the actual start. You are already making 5%, 7%, 10% higher capital gain than they are because you paid less, because you entered at the right time, right? When it was in pre-launch. And that's why, again, all of these units and so many developers are, once they officially release or officially launch the unit, it's already gone. Everything is gone, right? So I'm telling you also to know this upfront and plan when to enter the market. Now you have seen also that majority of transactions here are cash, right? So unlike, for example, US market, which is completely based on debt, right, which is completely based on mortgages, where you can get mortgages with good credit scores with 0, 3 or 5% down, right? And that's why it's a very shaky market as well, of course. Now here, majority of transactions, as you have seen before, are through cash, right, and payment plans, which are still through cash, but you don't pay everything at once. Now the changes that you can see also through these 2 years, and especially now, is that payment plans are getting very aggressive as well. Previously, what we had is, for example, you would pay let's say 50% during the construction and 50% on the handover, or only 40% during the construction and 60% on handover, or you would even have 2 years of post handover to pay off that 60%, right? Right now, what the majority of developers is asking, 80% during the actual construction and 20% on handover, right? So it's very aggressive, even from the start itself. Now your booking would be, of course, minimum 10%, but majority of developers are asking 20% to be paid immediately as well, right? So in every sense, the payment plans are getting more aggressive, which means you need to be a bit more liquid and comfortable to pay off more during the actual construction, right? So again, even though applying of all of this, there is such a huge demand and there is definitely not enough units that I don't see this slowing down anyway, and anytime soon as well. So for the rest of the 2023, prices are definitely gonna keep going up unless something really major would happen to disturb the overall global economy. But for the next, let's say in the first half of 2023, I don't see an absolute chance of prices actually slowing down, or even not to mention starting to go down. So this is it's a time where you have good opportunities if you know what you're doing, if you're working with people who know what they're doing. And if you are someone who's looking to enter the market as well or expand your portfolio, you are most welcome to contact me. You will have my details in the description, and I'll pin a comment with a link as well to my WhatsApp, so you are one click away from having a connection with me. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, please like, subscribe, share to someone else who might find it helpful. And again, if you're looking for a property or know someone who does, get in touch with me so I can help you with that. Thank you very much and take care.